The German Intercity Express is one of the fastest trains in the world, renowned for its comfort, luxury and safety. Until it careers off the track and crashes at 200 kilometers per hour. 101 people perish in 180 seconds. It's the worst high-speed train crash ever. Now, with advanced computer technology, we reveal exactly what went wrong. Disasters don't just happen. They're a chain of critical events. Unravel the fateful decisions in those final seconds from disaster. Europe, Germany, Munich, 3rd of June 1998, 5:45 a.m. Passengers board the 800-seater Intercity Express. ICE 884 will make 7 stops on an 850-kilometer journey before reaching Hamburg, a popular destination because of its connections to business centers and seaside holiday resorts. 5:47 a.m. ICE 884 departs Munich, 12 luxury coaches carrying more than 400 passengers. The Intercity Express is fast, capable of traveling at 250 kilometers per hour. It boasts advanced safety features, including carriages made from strengthened aluminium and computerized onboard monitoring systems. In 7 years of service, there's never been a fatal accident. It's so advanced that even Amtrak are considering buying the design for use on America's rail network. The second stop on ICE 884's journey is Nuremberg. Jörg Dittmann, his wife Sigrid, and their 6-year-old son Andre get on and take their seats in coach 1, right at the front of the train. They're going away to the seaside.
Well, it was the very first big holiday for my family. So we said, okay, let's have a stress-free break, without the car. Well, because on a train you're free to move around, which is a big advantage when traveling with children.
Edith Schäflein is also going on holiday. She boards coach 5 in the middle of the train.
I got on the Intercity Express in Würzburg. I was on my way to a health resort, and I was due to get off in Hamburg.
Udo Bauch takes the ICE train because its smooth ride and luxurious surroundings enable him to work on the journey. He boards coach 12 at the rear of the train.
I got on the ICE at Fulda station. I was on a business trip to a conference in Hamburg. I wanted to prepare for the day ahead, so I found a compartment, sat down and worked on my laptop.
Germany's high-speed ICE train is a prestige project from a country famed for its engineering skills. It's launched on June 2nd, 1991, to extravagant state celebrations. This is more than just a new train. With the fall of the Berlin Wall only 2 years earlier, the advanced ICE symbolizes a bright future for a united Germany. Speeds of 250 kilometers per hour are routine, significantly cutting journey times. But speed and safety are not the train's only selling points. There is also luxury. The coaches are air-conditioned. Seats are equipped with headphones and offer a choice of music. Some even have television screens. If this looks like the business class cabin of a plane, that's exactly what the train's designers want. The ICE is an instant hit with passengers. Only 2 years after its introduction, more than 65,000 people a day use the service. Many lured away from air travel by its speed, comfort, and convenience. That it should fail is unthinkable. 10:56 a.m. 5 hours into the journey. The 400 passengers on board ICE 884 are just 40 minutes from Hamburg, their final destination. So far, it's been an uneventful journey. But that is about to change.
The bang was just beyond any description. All I can compare it with is the moment when a supersonic jet thunders through the sound barrier. And this happens right next to your ear. And at that moment, a shard of metal came slicing through the armrest between my wife and my son.
The huge metal shard creates a gaping hole in the carriage floor.
I just said, get out, get out, get out of the compartment.
Raus, raus, raus aus dem Abteil.
Elsewhere in the train, passengers hear the bang, but they're unaware of what's happening in coach 1. Edith Schäflein is in coach 5 in the middle of the train.
There was an enormous bang.
Und da sind die Leute in unserem Waggon aufgesprungen, haben gesagt,
And the people in our carriage jumped up and wondered what it was.
ruhig, da lief der Waggon wie auf Butter wieder.
But then it all went calm after
Und
that.
keiner hat sich mehr, alle haben sich
The
hingesetzt,
train
aber dann
continued
ist es sofort
smoothly, and
gedacht, dass die
so
Leute
everyone sat
aufgesprungen
back
haben und
down.
gesagt, was war das?
At the very back of the train, in coach 12, Udo Bach is absorbed in his work.
I didn't hear anything beforehand, unlike other passengers who've reported hearing noises. But that's probably because I was concentrating. I was working on my computer.
10:57 a.m. and the damaged ICE 884 is still speeding through the countryside at 200 kilometers per hour, with a huge shard of metal that smashed through the floor of coach 1 lodged between two seats. Jörg Dittmann takes immediate action. He leads his wife and son out of the damaged coach and sets off to alert the train crew to what he's just witnessed.
I found the train conductor in the third coach. Getting there from coach 1 seemed to take forever. It felt like I had to run the length of the train. It took ages. It was terrible.
But the train conductor tells Jörg that, according to company rules, he must investigate the incident before he's authorized to activate the emergency brakes. Jörg leads him back to coach 1 to inspect the damage. It takes them 1 minute to get there. 10:58 a.m. ICE 884 with 400 people on board is hurtling towards the town of Eschede at 200 kilometers per hour. In 1 minute, this sleepy town will become synonymous with the worst accident in the history of high-speed rail travel. One of its residents, Erika Karl, is at home with her husband. Their house is next to a road bridge, just 20 meters from the railway tracks.
I was sitting in the kitchen with my husband, having a cup of coffee, and we were talking about changes we wanted to make to our garden. It was a lovely summer's day, no indication of what was about to happen.
On board ICE 884, Jörg Dittmann knows something is seriously wrong with the train.
I came back with the conductor, and by then the whole train had started to sway from side to side, so we were thrown about the carriage.
ICE 884 is approaching the Eschede road bridge at 200 kilometers per hour.
Hopefully this thing will come to a stop somehow, and nothing terrible will happen, is what I thought. But the worst did happen.
A routine trip on a German intercity express is about to turn to tragedy. Its 400 passengers are unaware that anything is wrong with the train. All except for one man. Jörg Dittmann is sitting with his family in coach 1 when something tears through the armrest. Now he's trying to persuade the train conductor to stop the train.
Even when the train started to sway about, he didn't show any signs of willingness to pull the emergency brake. He just wanted to find out what was wrong. We came to the first coach where we'd been sitting, and I was just about to point to the spot and show him the damage. And that's when it happened.
At 200 kilometers per hour, ICE 884 derails and hurtles towards the road bridge. 10:59 a.m. Erika Karl and her husband Dieter hear the noise.
My husband said, "I think it's a plane crash." And then there was deathly silence, and not even the birds were singing.
Erika Karl inadvertently becomes the first person on the accident scene.
Our door has a glass pane, so we could see that a train was right by our front gate. Then I said to my husband, "There's an ICE lying outside."
In the quiet town of Eschede, only 130 kilometers from Hamburg, these are the photos that Erika Karl takes. A 50-ton carriage has landed in her back garden. Amazingly, the only damage to her house is a broken window pane. Damage to the train, however, is colossal. More than 400 passengers are on the crashed ICE. Jörg Dittmann is back near his seat in coach 1 at the front of the train.
I looked at the train conductor lying on the floor, and he looked at me, his face covered in blood. So we stared at each other saying, "You okay?"
Remarkably, the train conductor, Jörg, and his family have only superficial wounds. They're able to walk away from the accident. Further down the train, Edith Schäflein and Udo Bauch are seriously injured, along with more than 100 others. 11:05, 6 minutes after the crash. As the emergency services arrive, the enormity of the disaster becomes apparent. First news pictures reveal that the double-lane 300-ton road bridge has totally collapsed. The devastation is breathtaking. Andreas Ebbinghausen is one of the first policemen on the scene.
I could see these railway carriages compacted into each other, bent and twisted upwards, 5-6 meters in the air, right up to the top of the embankment, and the entire concrete bridge had gone. It was lying on the ground. It was a scene of total devastation.
Eight of the ICE's coaches have concertinaed into an area little more than the length of a single carriage. Hundreds are still trapped in the wreckage. Udo Bauch, who moments before was preparing for a business conference, is now seriously injured.
I was lying there, my leg paralyzed, scared that I was going to die.
Andreas Ebbinghausen hears Bauch's cries for help, but he's unable to drag him from the wreckage.
I made contact with one of the rescue team leaders. I told him that I had found a seriously injured man on the train.
The rescue team sends for specialist equipment.
They had to cut the roof off to get me out, and I was in agony. So the paramedics gave me strong painkillers. But the side effects of the drug meant that my breathing stopped temporarily, and then I went into a coma. I don't remember anything about the rescue after that. How I ended up in a helicopter and was flown to Hanover, I don't recall any of it.
11:25 a.m. Initial estimates put the number of casualties at 40 dead and 40 seriously injured. Edith Schäflein is trapped in coach 5 with injuries to her legs.
Then the first fireman appeared and asked how I was. I said I was fine. I couldn't feel any pain because of the shock. And so then he helped me out of the window on the other side of the carriage.
Despite her injuries, Edith Schäflein manages to climb out of the window and is taken to hospital. By 1:45 p.m., medical staff have given emergency treatment on site to 87 people. 27 of the most critically injured are airlifted to hospital. Rescue workers have no idea how many people are still trapped inside the train. But while there's the slightest hope of finding more survivors, the operation continues into the afternoon, evening, and night. During the night, the rescue teams discover the bodies of 2 railway workers in the wreckage. They'd been carrying out routine maintenance on the track when the train crashed. The death toll now climbs to 81. Over the next 48 hours, emergency services continue their desperate search, but no one else is found alive. At 6:42 a.m. on Saturday morning, almost 3 days after the crash, the rescue operation is called off. 101 people die, and 105 are injured in the world's worst high-speed train crash. The unthinkable has happened. The pride of German technology lies in ruins. The Intercity Express is one of the fastest, most luxurious trains in Europe, used by 65,000 passengers a day. In a matter of seconds, an unblemished safety record is shattered in a devastating accident. Now we rewind the events of that fateful day and go deep into the investigation to reveal what really happened. Advanced computer simulation will take us where no camera can go, into the heart of the disaster zone. Within hours of the crash, news journalists seize on a simple explanation for the accident.
The cause of the crash remains uncertain, but first reports said that the train had hit a car which was on the railway tracks.
Crashed through the guardrail of a bridge over the main line.
This is a 1,000,000 to 1 chance.
Crash investigators are told that 20 minutes before the accident, a car was seen parked on the bridge over the railway. A British eyewitness goes even further. He thought that a vehicle had fallen through the barrier, off the bridge, and onto the railway line.
The car was on its side on the tracks, and out of nowhere came the express train, and everybody just closed their eyes in disbelief. The train had no chance to stop. It was just an almighty great crash. It seemed to go on for eternity.
During the cleanup operation, this theory is given a boost by the discovery of a vehicle crushed under the wreckage. But as investigators examine the crash site further, the mounting forensic evidence increasingly contradicts what the eyewitness thought he'd seen. To start with, the first passenger carriages, although derailed, show no signs of a collision with another vehicle. What's more, the power car at the front of the train is completely undamaged. Investigators conclude that if another vehicle has caused the accident, there would surely be some evidence of this at the front of the train. But then, how did the car end up beneath the wrecked ICE? The discovery of the car's registration details amongst the wreckage provides the final clue. Jürgen Wigger, who had later prosecuted the Eschede trial, sets the record straight.
To begin with, there was a rumor that the crash was caused by a vehicle which had fallen from the bridge. But it was quickly discovered that the car in question was actually a service vehicle used by employees of the train company, working near the track, and who unfortunately also became victims of the accident.
The two men had left the vehicle on the bridge while they worked below. It was in fact the impact of the train hitting the bridge which caused the car to fall off and become buried in the wreckage.
It didn't actually have anything to do with the crash.
One mystery solved. But if the car didn't cause the accident, what did? The first clue comes not from the crash site, but from 6 kilometers back down the railway.
This evening it's emerged that investigators have found damaged rails nearly 3 miles up the line, where the actors there have found damage to rail track 6 kilometers.
Investigators found marks on and close to the track.
Could these damaged railway tracks 6 kilometers back from the accident site really be linked to the cause of the disaster?
In Coach 1, investigators make a second discovery that could be related. They find a length of steel lodged in the floor of the carriage. What is it exactly, and where did it come from? Investigators now have to travel back to the final minutes leading up to the crash.
180 seconds before the crash, Jörg Dittmann is sitting with his family at the front of the train.
We were looking out of the window, and at that moment there was this unbelievable bang. And I just said, "Get out, get out, get out of the compartment."
Raus, raus, raus aus dem Abteil.
The investigation team realized that the huge shard of metal which comes shooting into Jörg Dittmann's compartment is the same piece of metal later discovered lodged in the floor of Coach 1. But where did it come from? The compartment Jörg Dittmann is sitting in is directly over the rear wheels of Coach 1. Closer examination of the wheels leads to a breakthrough discovery. One of them is seriously damaged, and its steel rim has broken away. Investigators conclude the piece of metal stuck in the floor of Coach 1 is in fact the broken rim, which is separated from the wheel, smashing up through the carriage floor between Jörg Dittmann's wife and son. Robert Lauby is the Director of Safety with the U.S. National Transport Safety Board at the time of the Eschede accident.
Part of the wheel that broke straightened out and it hung up directly under the car. In this position, the wheel was carried along as the train traveled down the track at 112 miles per hour.
And it's this unraveled wheel rim that scrapes along the track, sending sparks flying, causing the track damage almost 6 kilometers back from the accident site. But losing one wheel rim should not have caused the technically advanced ICE 884 to crash so catastrophically. And since the train travels another 6 kilometers before derailing, something else must have happened to turn a mechanical failure into a major disaster.
The team now turn their attention to the area of track immediately before the Eschede road bridge. Here they find some crucial new evidence. Damage to the track indicates that 200 meters before the bridge, the train derails. But why does it derail here, and not at the point where the wheel rim shatters 6 kilometers further back? The point where the train careers off the track is where the local branch line crosses the main line.
There are two sets of points which can divert rail traffic from the main line to the branch line. To guide trains through these sets of points safely, there are also rail guides known as check rails. Investigators comb the track at the point of derailment. They make a crucial finding. One of the check rails, a length of steel, is missing. It's been completely torn away from the track. They need to find it.
A detailed search of the crash site reveals nothing. But when investigators examine the inside of the wrecked train, they make another vital discovery. This is Coach 1. Our cameras are the first to be allowed inside since the Eschede crash inquiry. Faded posters and magazines lie scattered around the carriage. It's as if time stood still at 10:59 a.m. on June the 3rd, 1998. Here, investigators make a breakthrough. Damage to the compartment in which Jörg Dittmann was traveling indicates where the wheel rim unraveled, splitting the floor open and piercing the armrest. But only a few meters away in the corridor, investigators find something else. It's the missing check rail, which leaves these gaping holes in the floor and ceiling. With this discovery, they're now able to piece together more of the last moments of the train's journey. 3.6 seconds before the crash, on the approach to the Eschede road bridge, ICE 884 is still traveling at 200 kilometers per hour, with the wheel rim scraping along the track. As the train runs over the first set of points, the end of the rim scoops up the check rail, which smashes through the floor of coach 1. It's this massive impact which causes two of the wheels at the rear of coach 1 to derail. But investigators realize that although ICE 884 has derailed, this still isn't enough to cause the huge devastation of the Eschede accident. In fact, in many derailments, trains often grind to a halt with minimal damage. So if the derailment isn't the final cause of the disaster, what is? Germany's high-speed train, ICE 884, crashes in the town of Eschede, killing 101 people. It's the worst disaster in the history of high-speed rail travel. Using advanced computer graphics based on accident reports, we go deep into the investigation to unravel the tragic chain of events. Investigators know that the metal rim of one of the train's wheels breaks and smashes up through the floor of coach 1 just as it's approaching a road bridge. When it passes over a set of points where the branch line crosses the main line, the rim from the damaged wheel scoops up a check rail and the train derails.
Even now, the train should be able to come to a halt safely, but instead, the fatal chain of events continues. The investigation team return to the crash site to hunt for more clues.
They examine the second set of points immediately before the bridge and make an extraordinary finding. There's evidence to suggest that after the points, ICE 884 actually starts traveling on two different sets of tracks, the main line and the branch line. How can this have happened? The team deduced that 1.44 seconds before the crash, as ICE 884 passes over the second set of points, one of the two derailed wheels of coach 1 smashes into them and forces them to open. This means that the carriages following coach 1 are now guided onto the wrong track, the local branch line rather than the main line. With the front power car still pulling at 200 kilometers per hour, but the coaches behind it slowing as they leave the main line and derail, the connection between the power car and the rest of the train tears apart. At this moment, emergency air brakes automatically deploy throughout the train. Jörg Dittmann and the train conductor in coach 1 are hurled through the air.
Before we could react at all, there was this jolt, as if a bullet had been fired from a gun. I felt it was all over.
Coach 1 is now straddling the main line, and coach 2 is heading off onto the branch line. But even this does not cause the final crash. 1.44 seconds before impact, ICE 884 is derailed, but essentially undamaged, and its emergency air brakes could bring the train to a controlled stop. But that is not what happens. And what's more, the compact nature of the wreckage indicates to investigators that this is a particularly violent accident. They now scour the crash site for clues to shed light on how a train 410 meters long can have been compressed into an area the length of a single carriage. They examine the remains of the Eschede road bridge to see what part it might have played in the accident.
The bridge is supported by concrete pillars, which stand about 2 meters from the tracks. It's this proximity to the railway that becomes the new focus of inquiry. It helps to piece together the next sequence of events. About 3 minutes after the wheel breaks, ICE 884 reaches the Eschede road bridge at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour.
The power car and coaches 1 and 2 pass under the bridge without touching it. But coach 3 is pushed outwards by the momentum of the train and slams directly into the pillars. ICE 884 crashes into the Eschede road bridge.
The third car was diverted over to the siding and swung out to the right, and at that time struck the supports for the bridge and knocked the supports out from under the bridge.
When coach 3 destroys the pillars, the bridge starts to collapse. Coach 4 clears the falling bridge, but catapults off the track and crashes into nearby trees. As coach 5 passes under the collapsing bridge, it's struck by tons of falling concrete, and the rear half is totally destroyed. Edith Schäflein is traveling in the front half of coach 5.
There was just no time to think. I heard the bang and was thrown about. I was catapulted from left to right. I saw that the windows were shattering and the train buckled so much. It's just impossible to imagine how it was so completely smashed up, so completely ripped apart.
Immediately behind her, the restaurant coach is crushed to a height of 15 centimeters by the falling bridge. The resulting debris now blocks the path of the remaining 6 coaches and the rear power coach, which, moving at almost 200 kilometers per hour, concertina into the wreckage. Udo Bausch is in passenger coach 12.
There was a bang louder than I've ever heard in my life. And then everything happened very quickly. I was flung around the compartment, left to right, up and down, until I was left lying there in agony.
101 people are killed in the crash at Eschede. It seems to be the result of a tragic chain of events. A broken wheel, some points, a road bridge, which combined to create the biggest disaster in the history of high-speed rail travel. If this is the case, if this is a 1,000,000-to-1 chance accident, then the reputation of the ICE as a safe train will remain intact. But in the next stage of the inquiry, investigators make a startling discovery that proves the accident could easily have been prevented.
Germany's high-speed ICE train has crashed, killing 101 people, and all because of a broken wheel. It's the worst disaster in the history of high-speed rail travel. After the accident, the rim from the wheel in question is taken to the Fraunhofer Institute in Darmstadt, southwest Germany, for forensic testing.
Investigators there are particularly interested in the wheels of this train because they are of a new design unique to the ICE. 7 years earlier, on the 2nd of June 1991, the ICE is launched. One of the aims of the cutting-edge project is to reach a new standard in luxury and ride quality for its passengers. The train has solid steel wheels, known as monoblock wheels. But Deutsche Bahn, the German railway company that runs the ICE, soon experiences problems with them.
Shortly after the trains went into service, they found that they had a technical problem with wheel wear. The wheels were wearing in a strange pattern. When this happened, especially when the trains were traveling at high speed, noise and vibration would be generated and transmitted up into the passenger car.
The carriage where this is most evident is the restaurant car, where plates are shaking and glasses are spilling. It's the kind of image Deutsche Bahn can do without. To eliminate this restaurant rumble, something has to be done to maintain the ICE's reputation for smoothness. Professor Roderick Smith, mechanical expert at Imperial College London, explains.
Now, what steps can you take? They range from radical redesign of the track itself, which is clearly not practical, huge redesign of the vehicle, some changes to the suspension of the vehicle, or some changes to the wheel. And so a fairly obvious answer, most people would think that changing the wheel might be the cheap solution.
Within 2 months of the ICE's prestigious launch, and under pressure to find a solution, Deutsche Bahn decides to replace its original monoblock wheels with duoblock wheels. But how does this improve the smoothness of the ride? A traditional monoblock, or one-piece wheel, is made from a single, solid piece of steel. But a duoblock, or two-piece wheel, has an inner wheel surrounded by an outer rim. Sandwiched between are sections of rubber, designed to help absorb vibrations and provide a smoother ride. On the 31st of August 1992, Deutsche Bahn approves duoblock wheel type 064 for use on its ICE trains. The new wheel instantly improves the ride, and cups and saucers no longer shake and rattle in the dining car. Wheel type 064 seems initially to be a big success. That is, until one of them fails and triggers the terrible chain of events that caused the Eschede train crash. Scientists at the Fraunhofer Institute are now anxious to know whether there's an inherent fault in this type of wheel that could cause further accidents. Using sophisticated test rigs, they simulate a lifetime's wear in a matter of days. While examining the broken rim from the Eschede train crash, they make an alarming discovery. The wheel rim fractured through metal fatigue. In simple terms, fatigue occurs when a movement is repeated over and over again, causing a stress break at a weak point in the metal. There are examples of it occurring in everyday life.
This paper clip is a good example. If we bend it to and fro, relatively small number of times, you can break it easily. That's exactly what was happening inside the rim of the wheel that broke in the Eschede accident.
A wheel on a train actually flexes slightly as it turns because of the massive load it's under supporting the moving train. These movements are minuscule, but the constant flexing of the metal can eventually, given enough usage, cause the wheel's destruction through metal fatigue. With a duoblock wheel, there's a layer of rubber between the wheel and the rim. The soft rubber allows the outer rim to flex much more than on a monoblock wheel. As the separate rim wears down through use, the flexing increases. Without thorough inspection, the wheel rim can become too thin, and a small defect can become a crack that eventually fractures, causing the outer rim to break away from the inner wheel, with devastating results. In the case of ICE 884, this is exactly what happens. But metal fatigue fractures in train wheels usually develop over a period of months or years. So why didn't Deutsche Bahn technicians notice it during routine maintenance inspections? This is the answer that Deutsche Bahn gives to the investigation team. Instead of relying on their sophisticated metal fatigue detection equipment, it turns out that engineers at Deutsche Bahn's Munich maintenance facility had been carrying out safety checks on ICE's wheels with nothing more advanced than a flashlight.
As an inspection technique for any wheels, the use of torches will only pick out the largest and most dangerous of cracks. It won't pick out tiny fatigue cracks at an early stage of their life. So in terms of detecting potential cracks on the inside of the rim of a duoblock wheel, it's a completely useless technique.
The engineers at Deutsche Bahn's Munich depot had also been carrying out some tests with their high-tech testing machines. But the data was considered unreliable as the equipment constantly came up with error messages. However, in the week leading up to the Eschede train crash, the wheel that would go on to cause the accident was highlighted as being defective in 3 separate automated checks. When investigators download the maintenance reports from the crashed train's onboard computer, they make another astonishing discovery. They find that starting back in April, 2 months before the crash, conductors and other train staff lodge as many as 8 separate complaints about the unusual noise and vibration coming from the bogie that carries the defective wheel. Deutsche Bahn doesn't replace the wheel. Wheels of this type have been in use for 40 years. But Deutsche Bahn's duo-block wheel is of a new design and has never been used on a high-speed train before. In fact, duo-block wheels are traditionally found on one of the slowest moving forms of rail transport, the tram. In July 1997, almost a year before the Eschede train crash, the company that runs the tram network in the German city of Hanover discovers dangerous metal fatigue cracks occurring in its duo-block wheels, even though they're running at speeds of only 24 kilometers per hour. They decide to change their duo-block wheels more often, well before metal fatigue has a chance to develop. The tram company contacts other rail operators running on duo-block wheels to inform them of the metal fatigue problem and its simple solution. In autumn 1997, only months before the Eschede accident, they notified Deutsche Bahn. According to the tram company, Deutsche Bahn said they haven't experienced any problems with metal fatigue. Investigators begin to question Deutsche Bahn's inspection procedure for the new duo-block wheel type 064. On August the 8th, 2002, a trial begins against 3 engineers accused of negligent homicide. The outcome of the trial surprises everyone and shocks the German public. The investigation into the cause of the Eschede train crash reveals that tragically 101 people have died because inspections on the wheel that triggered the accident were inadequate. 3 individuals, 2 engineers from Deutsche Bahn and an employee from the wheel manufacturer BVV, are charged with negligent homicide and bodily harm. The engineers' defense is that they had followed the technical standards of the time and that the fracture in the wheel could not have been predicted.
Deutsche Bahn is not in the dock itself because in Germany only people can be tried, not companies. After 8 months, the trial ends in controversy.
Es gab keinen Schuldspruch, die sind angeklagt worden. Es ist auch
no one was found guilty.
Hauptverhandlung ein Prozess
They were charged,
angefangen worden.
and there was a trial, but there was no guilty verdict returned.
In German law, when there is no substantial guilt, a trial may be concluded with no guilty verdict, and a fine can be paid as a compromise. And that's what happens in the case of the Eschede train crash trial.
The prosecution and defense agree to a compromise. No one is found guilty of negligent homicide, but the court fines the 3 engineers €10,000, around £6,500 each. Families of the victims and survivors of the accident are furious. The court's decision makes their fight for compensation much harder.
It's a huge disappointment to me. The fact that German law is in such a sad state. In other countries, curiously, these things work without a hitch. And there are excellent, much better schemes taking care of the victim. Only in our country, strangely, this is not possible. It seems beyond belief.
Soon after the accident, Deutsche Bahn did make initial goodwill payments to the families who had lost loved ones in the accident. The amount was 30,000 Deutschmarks for each person killed. This offer was met by some with anger and derision.
30.000 Mark damals.
30,000 marks for every dead person. That's just a joke.
Deutsche Bahn later settled financially with many victims. But for Edith, money has had a limited effect on her quality of life.
I completely ripped apart all the tendons in my legs. And so I still have problems from that. Even now, I have to make allowances every day.
Directly after the accident, Udo Bauch spends 17 days in a coma. Today, he's disabled and cannot work. He's reunited with the policeman who saved his life, Andreas Evinghausen, whom he asks to be the godfather to his daughter Marie, born 3 years after the accident. And thankful to be alive, Udo builds a memorial.
Diese Kapelle wird jährlich von ca. 5.000 bis 6.000 Menschen.
This chapel gets about 5,000 to 6,000 visitors a year, and it's very popular. People say lots of prayers here for the victims of Eschede. And that is enough proof for me that to build this memorial with my own money was the right thing to do.
A year after the construction of Udo Bauch's memorial, an official memorial is also built, in part funded by Deutsche Bahn. It's at the site of the crash next to the new Eschede road bridge. A reminder of that terrible summer's morning when an extraordinary chain of events unfolds. A poorly maintained wheel which breaks and lodges in the train floor, scooping up a check rail, causing ICE 884 to career off the tracks as it crosses a set of points and smash into the bridge, triggering the world's worst high-speed rail disaster.
Today, Deutsche Bahn has removed the duo-block wheel Type 064 from service and replaced them with traditional monoblock wheels. They maintain that the wheels and the inspections met the standards required at the time, and that their engineers could not have predicted a wheel fracture. As of November 2002, Deutsche Bahn say they paid out 25 million euros in compensation to the victims' families and survivors of the crash. Since